All right, welcome back. Welcome back.
Yo, welcome back. It feels good to be back,
Feels good to be back,
as always.
and we have a third co-host, Tati. So it's not a welcome back for you; it's an introduction for you. Yeah, I guess. So I guess to kind of start, Thomas will be taking season two off, and Tati's gonna be filling in for him, and working toward being, we're working toward making it a three-person podcast. We have a lot planned for season two and season three moving forward. But Tati, feel free to introduce yourself and share what you're about, what you're hoping for, what you're looking
Hello.
forward to, all that good stuff. All that, all that.
Hi, I'm Tati. I'm from Harlem, born and raised, currently residing in the Bronx. I'm a part time photographer, part time marriage officiant, part time healthcare worker. I'm a Pisces.
I love
You got a
it.
birthday coming up or past?
My
It's coming
birthday's
up
on
Sunday.
Sunday.
Yeah, yeah.
There we
Yeah,
go. There we go.
yeah. I'm about to be 35. Uh, I'm feeling good about joining this. I love the culture. I love Black people. I love all things Black, everything Black. So I'm excited to be a part of this.
Nope. Uh,
Sounds like you're gonna fit right in.
yeah. Um, yeah. So I guess Thomas, do you want to do like intro farewell to people for season two, or I guess share what you'll be doing behind the scenes and what you're hoping to still contribute behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think so. It's been a great run so far. We've had tons of really, really incredible conversations, and the podcast has been a huge influence on my life and the work that I do outside of it as well. Um, and I'm just honored to be able to, give Tati an opportunity to share her perspectives. But what I'm going to be working on in the back end is trying to do my best to support from an admin standpoint. So a lot of the admin stuff that needs to happen, I'll be doing because a lot of you may or may not know, but I have like 40 companies, so I gotta chill. But yeah, that's essentially where I'll be supporting during season two. And as Clifford was saying, as we continue to build what the podcast is going to be and how the podcast is going to evolve. It's hopefully going to get to a point where you'll have all three of us sharing our perspectives.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
anything I miss?
No, no, no. I think that's a good general without giving too much away. And this is kind of something Thomas and I talked about during the middle of season one, wanting to have and I mean, I've posted on TikTok too, wanting to have a female co-host who can offer a different perspective because we're giving you. Although Thomas and I usually always have different perspectives, and we always have perspectives from different angles or different views, it's still just two black males' perspectives. So we wanted to get a black female in to share her to have her share her experience, growing up because we know although I feel we all kind of come from the same general background, and it's still a different life experience completely. So excited to just have a new voice and a different side, I guess a different perspective on the media, and that we're sharing. Excuse me, it's been a minute. I haven't even done this for myself in a minute, so it's weird. But yeah, let's get into the final episode of season one, the 2002 film Antwone Fisher, starring Denzel Washington and Derek Luke. Thomas, this was your suggestion, and I have to say, man, I'm grateful for this. This is probably this was my first time watching it, and I think this is my favorite media that I've been introduced to during this season. It's a beautiful, beautiful, and powerful movie. That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's all I got. That's
No,
all,
no.
that's all I
I was
oh,
looking. I
Thomas,
was looking it up.
pull
I
back
was
your
bringing
mic
it
up
up
just a
on
little
my.
bit. Your mic is still loud, or you could just put yeah.
I was bringing it up on my screen, so I had the details.
No problem.
No, no. It's hands down one of my favorite movies. The movie it hits home for me. There's a lot that happens in it that not only you not only have the perspective of a black man in the military, but the mental health aspect of it, the brotherhood, the fatherhood. Um, it's just interesting how it was different because Denzel Washington to me, and you and I talk about it from time to time how some of his movies are just blah, and I was like really really surprised when I watched this,
All right,
and it was my introduction to Derek Luke. So so yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
cool.
Um, what are your thoughts, Tati?
I've never seen Antwone Fisher either. I did not realize how heavy it was. But I thought it was incredible. I couldn't believe how good everyone was pretty much like across the board for me. But it touched on a lot. I really enjoyed how vulnerable they showed black men being, especially with one another. That like really got me. But I really enjoyed the movie a lot. And I
Yeah,
think Denzel Washington was the very opposite of blah.
in this movie,
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
yeah,
it's interesting because I watched Journal for Jordan earlier this year, which Denzel also directed, and I think we talked about that a bit. And when I looked through the IMDb reviews, someone was talking about how powerful the story is, but the movie just kind of missed that mark, which was also what I kind of felt watching the movie. Then I see this, and I'm like, yo, like he had it. Like Denzel
Yeah.
has this. Like I mean, that might have been. I think Journal for Jordan might have been the first directed a movie that I'm aware of that Denzel directed that I watched. But I'm watching this, and I'm like, yo, like he has the capability to like really create that air of emotion, pain, and it just didn't show up in Journal for Jordan for some reason. So it was just like a interesting duality for me, but it changed my perspective to see that he does have the talent. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's post editing, or maybe it's I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I feel
yeah.
like
It's
this was
something
his
that.
baby.
So,
Go ahead, Tati.
I feel like this movie was his baby. Like it was he put so much care into it. He put a lot of care into it, I think, because he not I don't think he came from like a similar situation, but it was just kind of like just seeing him and Derek Luke like they just worked so well together. It was almost like he's like this has to be good. The chemistry was incredible.
right.
Yeah, Denzel for me, to your point, Cliff. You know, a Journey for Jordan. I watched that movie because of Anton Fisher. Like I gave it a chance because I know what the significance of what Anton Fisher meant to me. So when I watched that and it turned out the way, and it's a beautiful film in its own right, but it's definitely missing the mark in so many ways, especially with the way things are in 2021 and 2022. So so yeah, that's a great point.
Right. And Antwone Fisher was his directing debut. And he also did The Great Debaters, which I watched and loved. I haven't watched Fences, but I feel like Fences is well renowned. So again, just interesting to seeing the transition of his work. Um but yeah, I guess to start, what were I guess why was the movie made? Like, why do you think the movie was made? Mental health hasn't hit, mental health. No one cared. No one really talked about mental health until these past 2 3 years. So what was going on
Yeah.
in 2002 that kind of brought on this mental health story, or is
I
or real quick, or are we looking at it as mental health because of where we are, and it was just about like for me, I wrote the word closure. Like, what do you both think?
I so I looked it up because I was like, I wanna, was looking up the actors' names, the producers, and I found that like the reason why this story was told was because Antoine Fisher, after leaving the Navy, was working as a security guard at Sony. And he kind of like told his life story to this producer that worked there who like thought it was an amazing and incredible story and was like, let's get this made. And then he pitched it.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
I
Hmm.
was like, that's insane. Like, that's
Yeah,
so cool. And because it's
yeah,
based on the book too, about his life. So it was just like he got into the right ear and someone heard him and thought his story was worth telling and then they told it. And I think that's really dope.
real quick,
yeah.
Tati. Can you bring your mic down just a little bit more? The input is a bit loud. Sorry. All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
I I also think that is dope that Tati went and looked that up because I didn't, and somebody had to. So good looking out, fam.
No
Appreciate
problem.
you for that. And
No problem.
yeah, yeah. I think I think the movie was made. Obviously, what Tati shared is the the actual facts. But when I watched it again, the biggest thing for me was showing real life. It was so real. It was so vivid. It wasn't one of those movies where, and I talk about this a lot, where I watch these movies and I'm like, yo, that would never happen in real life. This is some shit that would happen in real life. Like
Right, right,
this is a real life story, and just the the theme throughout the film, which like you said, the theme is was very focused on finding closure, right? Finding the answers that you need to move on in your life, and I think it ended beautifully. Yeah, it was just all around just really really good film. I watch it at least probably like 5 6 times a year. Every time it's on TV, I make sure I watch it.
Oh
Like I
that's dope.
wow.
love it. I have like 5 films that I watch all the time, and this is one of those films because there's just certain parts in the movie that's so powerful. I share with other young black men. It's a film I suggest young black men watch, or young men in general, not just black men, but young men in general watch. So,
Right.
um, so yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's I mean, I feel like it keeps you it keeps the old foot on the neck. It keeps its foot on your neck in the since the in the I mean in the first first 5 minutes. That scene when he's a young boy and he's like, I think, is he at a barn, I believe? And he
Yeah, he's like in the field barn area.
Yeah, yeah, he starts off in the field, right? And he walks toward the barn, and you just see all these black people, these beautiful black people, beautiful black faces. And he's just walking, and there's this huge table full of food, and like watching that scene and this, I felt pride, right? Because the overall theme I feel like with blackness is like you don't see that collectiveness at times, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
feel like you see that many group of black people together, and it felt different because it was family, right? Or you see black people in groups, but it isn't family, it isn't blood family, it isn't a generation of cousin, aunts, uncles, and third wives and all of that together, and they bring him to the front of the table and he wakes up. Um, and it took me out of the beauty of it, which I think is dope because that's just the reality of life, right? You can be in this fantasy of wanting things to be amazing, but the reality is that's not your situation. What were the first 5-10 minutes like for the both of you?
Well, let's hold on 1 second because I think we should let everybody know who's in the film because we normally that's something we normally share, right?
I thought that, yeah, sorry.
No, no, it's okay.
Well,
I
no, I
think
thought that was
it's fine.
after. That's segment three. Segment two is title screen, and then we do main characters. I thought.
Oh, okay. I thought we jumped into. Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure. So based on what you just shared in that first scene, I think for me, what really hit me was how we have these moments where we're in these zones, right? Even like you and I talking about the miseducation of Lauren Hill and how Lauren's like I believe Lauren's daydreaming while she's drawing she's doodling on the desk.
Right.
It's kind of the same kind of concept where he's in this zone, he's in this place where he's imagining the possibilities or what could have been, and then he's waking he's woken up to something where it actually takes him to a place of trauma, and he has to react to it. So I thought it was a great beginning because you had no idea it was going to go there, and it just like in a snap, it just changed.
Right.
So that was something obviously I thought was powerful, and I feel like that happens a lot throughout the movie. There's like 3 or 4 times where it just a change just kind of happens, and you're like, okay, we're back to where we were at the beginning of the beginning. It's kind of that same dynamic. So
I think it definitely gave like a foreshadowing feel, which definitely was a foreshadowing thing. But seeing it, yeah, like you said, juxtaposed against the next thing, you're like, oh wow, I wasn't gonna expect that. But the opening really like caught me off guard too, because then I was like, wait, oh, are we starting from the like him being a little boy into him growing up? And it was no, it's a dream. So that was cool. And it made me more interested in what was going to happen next because I got that foreshadowing feeling from the beginning, and I was like, where is this going to take us?
Yeah, absolutely. And I forgot to. I didn't even think about that point just now. That I thought this was a story. I'm like, oh, it's like a nice, pleasant. Like I said, I had no idea what the movie is. Like, I don't do
Yeah.
any pre-research. I just want to be immersed into it. So I'm like, oh, this is the movie. Like, he's a young boy in the field, and it's like this nice, cheerful, happy movie. And it's like I think toward the end of what you said, it's like, nah, you snap back, and it's Like you're still stuck here, right? You're still stuck dealing with all the pain and trauma of what your life experience has been.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's reality. That's
Yeah.
that's what it is. You
Yeah.
go from this place of what you want your life to be like and what you're trying to figure out, and then you wake up and you're like, oh shit, I'm back in reality. So there
Right,
was a lot of that happening.
right. So kind of to what Tati brought up, that it is an autobiography from the actual Antoine Quentin Fisher, and the autobiographical book was called Finding Fish.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, earlier I brought up that stars Denzel Washington as Dr. Jerome Davenport, there's Derek Luke as Antwone Fisher, Joy Brandt as Cheryl Smalley, which is Antoine's love interest, which is kind
Hmm.
of weird because you don't like there are a lot of scenes in the movie that they make fun of his sexuality,
Right.
and I didn't know where it was gonna go. I'm like, okay, is this about like gay love, like, black gay love? I'm like, oh, like that would be dope and groundbreaking, right? Like no one's ever talked about this.
Yeah.
um they play that relationship between them real well, and then you just realize it's just his awkwardness because of all the trauma he's
Right.
had growing up dealing with women.
Yeah.
Mind blown, bro. Like literally when I was watching that for the first time in my head, I couldn't get out of this. Like, why they doing him like this? Like, I kept thinking to myself, why they doing him like this? Like I was upset for him. And then as the movie progressed, which obviously we'll dive in, it became this beautiful thing that he was so timid, he
Right.
was so fragile. But at first, I was definitely ready to throw something at the TV screen because I was like, "Why they doing my guy like this?" He has to put up this persona that he's I don't even think it's a persona. I think it's actually in him. His anger is coming out of him,
Yeah,
Right.
Hulk
definitely.
style. And then on the flip side, when it comes to trying to you know explore his sexuality and explore love, he's being called out for like it like really bothered me. But again, as the movie played on, I calmed down.
Right.
Yeah. He's like an onion, because you like the more layers you peel away, it's like you realize he's like very angry, and then you're like, oh, he's kind of like awkward and timid, and then he becomes like a little bit more vulnerable. So it's like the more he like works at, whatever, he becomes like a different person, you know?
Right.
And he learns to regulate better.
And real quick, salute to 7-year-old Antoine Fisher, was Malcolm David Kelly, and I remember him being in the what was that movie you brought up, the Christmas movie? No, it was Soul Food actually, right? He's in Soul Food also.
Uh, I'm not
No,
sure.
he's not in
I'll
soul.
double check.
I don't
Isn't
think he's in soul food.
is I thought he was the younger kid in Soul Food.
No, that's I can't remember his name.
I got
They do look a little bit alike, but
He's in You Got Served, Mrs. Mississippi Damned. I don't know what that
he
movie
is in You Got
is.
Served. He's Little Saint, I think. Is he Little
Oh,
Saint?
he is Little Saint. That is correct. Good call. He is. Yep. That's right. Where you saw him. You Got Served.
got it, got it.
Uh,
Um,
and he's in a bunch of TV shows. Malcolm in the Middle, Girlfriends, Judging Amy, at least Eve, Lost. He's in all these TV shows. He's in a
I
ton of
really
TV shows.
thought that was the same person. That's crazy. Yeah, it's so after he snaps out of the dream, his next scene is him in the shower. You notice that he's in the Navy, and the white, I guess, superior officer asks him, you have something on your face, and he just decks him. And it didn't feel racial. Like watching it, it just feels like he's just short tempered and like wild. But then as you watch the movie, in my mind, I'm like, was that racial? Like, because there's that passive aggressive racism, right? Like, you something on your face, your blackness is on your
Yeah,
face, and you need to wipe
yeah,
that off because it's not welcomed here.
yeah. I had to like
Yeah, that
rewind that part because I thought I missed something. I was like, wait, did he say something racial? And then I was like, oh, he's just very angry. Or maybe it was like a microaggression and he's very angry.
yeah, I think to your point, people watching it, they depending on who you are and where you are in your life, you might think it was something racial, but it definitely wasn't. He was to me, he was in a mood, he was in the mode, snapped out of it, and then the wrong person. Well, it happens to me sometimes when if I'm on the train and I'm in the mode and I get off and someone says the wrong thing to me, or maybe I had a tough conversation, a tough morning with maybe a family member, and then someone, the next person, you hear people say sometimes the next person that say something won't get it.
Right.
And it's because of these moments. Like you may have a moment of trauma right then, and then you got to go out into the real world and try to figure it out and kind of calm down. I think that's kind of what he was going through, and again, it just kept happening throughout the film, and that's where Denzel Washington's character comes in. So
Right. And I kind of I relate to his anger. I relate to his wanting to be just left alone. Right. Like sometimes people just want to be left alone. Just leave people the fuck alone. Um, but people don't get that. I mean, we see it throughout the movie, like you talked about, like, or rather, we talked about, people just teasing him and getting on him. It's, I don't know. To me, it's corny. Like, being at this age, at this, like, I get it. I get the teasing and the making fun of people and all that as teens, but I feel like once you hit your 30s, it's like leave people alone. Like it's corny and outdated. But you face the consequences for that, which is getting punched in your face, right?
Yeah. A lot of fights.
it reminds me of stories that family members have told me about being in the armed forces and some of the heckling and things that go on. Um, and that literally like popped into my head, and how you know being bisexual or being a lesbian in the armed forces, you get ridiculed, and there's a bunch happening now, um in that particular space. So when I watched the film, it aligned with a lot of the stories that I've heard growing up from family members, just like some of the things that has happened to them and people that they've known in the military.
Right. Um,
I'm looking. Let's see.
so the person I was thinking about was Brandon Hammond, who was the young kid in Soul Food. But they definitely they definitely do
He's
go.
he's also in a really good he's also in a really good like black horror movie, like a collection of short stories in a horror movie that I really like. He's really good. I kind of wish he was in this movie now that I think
You
about
wish
it.
they swapped them out.
Yeah, maybe they should have
Thanks,
swapped
Cliff.
him out. Get out of here, little saint.
So yeah, let's talk about. I mean, let's talk about Denzel's character, Dr. Jerome Davenport. I mean, he's a well decorated officer in the Navy, and after the fight scene where he punches the white superior officer, he gets taken to see. Is it like yeah, he's a psychiatrist. He gets taken to see the
Yeah.
psychiatrist, for like a mental evaluation to see, should he be suspended? Should he get kicked out of the Navy? Should he be reenlisted? Um, and I like I like I like both sides of it. There was Denzel who, being a superior officer, you have time, right? Like I always have paperwork to do. I always have work to do. If you don't want to talk, I can just have you sit here every day for the rest of eternity or until I die, until I retire to do what I do. And I feel that, right? Because I have that type of patience. But he broke, which part of me didn't like the fact that Antwone Fisher broke. Right, you came here with this. Nah, I'm not doing this. I'm not gonna um I'm not gonna talk to you about anything. I have nothing to say. Then at some point he just breaks, and I'm like, you ain't about it. You ain't about it. You should have held on to your arrogance and not wonderful.
I liked that he broke. I thought that that was like because he kind of looked at it like, all right, if I just do these 3 sessions, then I could just leave. So he thought he'd just give like a little bit of information, and before you know it, it's just floodgates. Because like
Right,
sometimes once you realize somebody's listening to you and like really listening to you, you can't stop. So I thought that was cool. I was like, all right, got him. He got him quick. He got him quick. He didn't put up much of a fight, but I think he was waiting to find somebody that really could like listen to him.
right,
Yeah, I say this so much, but it definitely reminds me of it now. Obviously, back then this didn't exist, but they was having their own military versus battle, trying to figure out who's gonna who's gonna win this battle. And then also another thing to look at is Antwone up to that point, and we find out later on in the film, but Antwone never had a real male role model, a real male in his life that challenged him, that he everybody in his life, either really hurt him or he fought back. And the only way he can fight Denzel back was essentially not talking.
Right.
That was his arsenal. So that ability to hold out as long as he did, I thought was cool. And I also agree with Tati. I'm glad he did break because he needed to let off that steam. He needed to let all that out that he was carrying, and you could tell he wanted to do it, but he wanted to do it on his terms. And
Yeah.
that was a lot of the film. It's like, yo, I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna do it on my terms. And as the film continues to go on, he realizes that his terms are not enough. Right, his terms don't always work for him, so he has to start listening to other people that are important to him. So, um, but yeah, that back and forth was hilarious, and the steering and all that, it was
The throat
hilarious.
Right. Right.
clearing.
I mean,
Looking at the clock.
I mean, I don't mean to say that. I think that's just like the prideful part of me speaking, right? Like the pride of me, it's like, nah, like I'm alright, like I'll make it through. But the end result is knowing that, yeah, like you have something to say. So let go of the pride, right? And see where it unfolds, see where it leads you. Um, like for me, like I said, I kind of I relate to his story also because there was that anger in me. There was that I'm good. I do everything on my own. Um, and a lot of it, like with my journey and like self healing and all that, has still kind of been on my own and under my terms. But there's an awareness that at some point you reach a limitation. Now I think the limit is always knowing that having support from other people is what's going to elevate your healing and your life experience. But we all just kind of find that at our own times and different points in time. Sometimes you find it on your own, or sometimes you get placed in a situation like Antwone did to just just exhale, right? Just like I think about the movie Waiting to Exhale a lot, and just exhaling and just letting all the weight and the pain just out for the first time, and hopefully the right person is there in front of you to ask the right questions, and just let the ball of yarn unravel.
Yeah. I think he also, because he didn't have much and he didn't come from much, that the only thing he had was his pride. He really, like, later on in the movie he says, like, I'm a good man. Like, and I think that's a lot of the reason why he was so closed off, is because that's all he really had to, like, hold on to. And once he kind of like gave it he gave it to Dr. Davenport, like the anger, then you start to see, like, all right, he's super vulnerable, like he's just ready to crack, and he did.
Right.
Yeah, I know another
Um.
thing too. Oh, no, I was gonna say another thing too, uh, that we should definitely touch on it is I think how intelligent he was. He was studying all these languages, and he used to draw, and his intellect was at such a high level, and they bring it out. He showed at certain parts of the film, but I was just blown away by. I think he was taking Japanese lessons, Japanese to learn
Right.
Yeah.
Japanese or Chinese. Like that's not easy.
Yeah,
That's not
at
an easy thing
all.
to do. And I was just really appreciative, and obviously, now that I know it's based on a true story, I'm glad that that was something that they highlighted because black men are smart. We are intelligent. Just because we go into the military, a lot of times we go into these armed forces, people think we're going into it as a cop out. I know when I was in high school, a lot of my friends were like, "Yeah, I'm going in because what else am I going to do?"
Right.
And in some ways, that was Antoine's truth. Like he just had to nothing else going for himself. But when he got in, you saw little sides of him that showed his intellect, and I was really impressed and really proud to see this black guy in the Navy learning how to speak Japanese. And
Yeah.
I think he said he spoke like three or four other languages at one point, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Yeah.
uh, so that was really really dope.
Yeah, I think he probably knew, like, if I can change my circumstances, then, like, all the smarts I have, someone will see it and I can, like, improve myself. So he
Right.
changed his circumstances. Like, the only way he knew how. He said, I'm going to change my circumstances, and he did.
Yeah. It's it's dope. I mean, I guess it's like, going back, like thinking about outlets, right? People who have, I mean, people who have frustration, people who have pain inside of them, they find creative outlets to channel it into. He punched people in the face, but he also drew and did poetry. So like he was well
Yeah.
balanced. He was well rounded, and it was, and he was skilled at it too, right? Like, he wrote amazing poetry. There's that scene where he like reads the poem to Denzel,
At
which
his
was
house.
just
Yeah,
beautiful. Like, damn,
Did
I
you
was like,
know?
damn.
Like, did you know? Because I also looked this up too. He was inspired by a seminar he attended where Maya Angelou was there,
Wow.
and after seeing that, he decided like to compile his poetry. But like Antwone Fisher wrote that poem, like that is
Right.
his poem that he wrote, and I'm like, this guy is he's super talented. He's just you're right, Thomas. He's just very smart. He's just a very smart guy.
There's also the drawing and I guess creating a space. Like, going back to like the idea of outlets, creating a space to this channel energy. I mean, like, outside of being smart, right? Like, being smart is like, on one aspect, it's relative, but you look at the language, you look at the poetry, you look at the drawing. Like, what do those signify to the both of you outside of having a creative outlet for pain?
yeah, that's a great question, man. It's when you while you were asking the question, I was just thinking too that the thing about him as a person is that because he has so much trauma, he in some ways brought out joy in everybody else, like the people he cared about. So as the film goes on, he makes obviously he makes an impression on Dr. Davenport. He makes an impression on his wife. He makes an impression on his soon to be girlfriend, even his friend and his friend back at home, which we'll get into that as well. Like the type of friendship that they had. To me, his artwork and who he is oozes someone who's yearning for, and I hate to say it because I use it all the time, but connection. He's yearning for connection. He's yearning for that type of love and that type of, that's why I think at the beginning of the film, you see all these black people and you see he talks a little bit about his mom and his mom coming to get him, but that to me it goes quickly out the window and it just becomes more of his story.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I really believe that his artwork, everything that he was doing, was not only for him, but for him to show people I matter, like I'm somebody. And when the people that actually saw that in him, were the people that he affected in ways he didn't even know how. They didn't even know how to accept it because they had trials trying to figure out how to deal with him because of what he was giving. So yeah, that's what comes to mind for me.
Tati?
But
I I think sometimes people just need like, they just need a way, they just need an outlet, and he just had so many after, after anger stopped working. So I think like anger was his outlet, and then it changed to poetry being his outlet, or reading being his outlet. He starts off like, very laconic in the beginning of the movie. And then you start to get more and more dialogue from him. And it feels like it feels more authentic the longer the movie goes on, because he's getting in touch with himself. So I think after being able to let a lot of the anger go in his life by finally telling someone, it allowed him to do all these other things to kind of deal with the sadness of it instead of the anger.
Right. So we touched on a lot about the general idea of having trauma, but we haven't gone into the trauma. So I think this would be a good time to kind of get into it. Like, throughout the movie, they show a lot of childhood clips. They do a lot of flashbacks about his childhood experiences and the general themes of his life that have led to him becoming this reserved and a close person. What were some of the flashback scenes that like really resonated with you both?
Oh, es- especially when he was anytime he was dealing with Mrs. Tate and
Mr. Tate, his
like the
foster
way that
mother, right?
she,
Just to clarify.
yeah, his
Yeah.
foster mother, hmm played by Novella Nelson. Um, anytime like she was on the screen, it just made me so uncomfortable. Like
Right.
it's just terrible. But especially when they knew who was being called by how she said nigga, like that. Oh my gosh. I was like, damn, this is insane. But like, and you could hear it too, because she would inflect it differently. So it's like, that's you, man. And then they
Right.
go. And that was like, that was difficult.
So just to clarify, there were three adopted children.
Hmm.
As Antwone Fisher, there was
Jesse.
Jesse, and there was Dwight.
Hmm.
And Miss Tate, the foster mother, would just call them niggas in different tones. And like what you said, they all knew, yo, they all knew who she was talking to by the tone of nigga. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Thomas. Sorry.
Oh no, no. I obviously there's another point to that, but to piggyback of what Tati's saying, I actually have that experience in my life. So my dad calls us boy, it's me and my brother, and how he says boy, we know.
Which
That's
one?
great.
So it hit me immediately when I saw that. I was like, yo, my dad be like, I go be in a room, he'd be like, boy, come here. We know exactly which person he's talking to.
What's your tone for boy? What was your like? Give me two
I
different
don't
boy
even
tones,
I don't even
if you
remember.
remember, if you remember.
I he's still it's just me now, but that lives with him. But back in the day, we knew exactly which one he was talking to, and I guess it really depended. It was depending on what he needed done and stuff. Certain things my brother would do, certain things I would do, but it wasn't to that extreme. But it was. I definitely aligned with it, and then I thought to myself when I watched the film this most recent time, I was like, I'm wondering why comedians never use it as a joke. I always think it would be a cool Chappelle joke, like a cool skit to talk about how your parents say one name or one thing, and so maybe I need to go into that industry because I'm only in enough. But that and then just there's a lot of mental and physical abuse that happens to Antoine, um, and the whole thing with Mrs. Tate's daughter, and
I believe Nadine was it?
I don't remember her name.
Yes,
Let me
Nadine.
look it up.
Okay, played by Yolanda
Nadine, yeah.
Ross. Okay,
Yeah.
So, so that whole thing with her sexually assaulting, and we don't see it, so we don't know what she does. But
but
because
we
I want
hear
to
it.
be fair,
Yeah, we hear
but
it.
we don't see it, but we hear it, and uh, you can. But before it happens, how she interacts with him, how her interaction changes as soon as her mom leaves, it just it's startling, bro. It's like Jekyll and Hyde.
Right.
So it really like gave me the chills when I was watching it for the first time. Like, what's about to your point? What's about to happen to this poor kid? Um, and so he's dealing with that uh, again. Not knowing what his mom is doing, and trying to figure out that aspect. Losing a friend, losing friends on the block, and Jesse getting murdered or Jesse was stealing something and didn't tell him, which I thought was kind of crazy. So he comes back from the military on break. Yeah, he goes to Jesse's house. Jesse invites him in. Everything is good. They're hugging and showing love. He's like, "Yo, let's go to the store." They go to the store, and Jesse pulls out pulls out a gun to rob the store. And Antoine's like, "What the hell's going on here?" And Antoine's distraction throws him off, and the store owner turns and shoots Jesse, and then points the gun at Antoine. And in that moment, which I don't know about y'all, but I was like, "Oh shit!" In that moment, Antoine just runs off, and the cowbells are ringing, right? And he shares that story with Dr. Davenport. So, he has all these traumas coming to him in so many different ways and so many different angles, and he's trying to navigate that. And I think that has a lot to do with his anger and who he potentially end up becoming, or, or
Yeah.
becomes.
So during that scene with I think was he I think 7 years old, maybe 12 years old. I guess age 7 they say.
Seven.
Um,
Yeah.
with him and Nadine, it's to both of your points. It's just disturbing the transition. She slaps him across the face, and then she like leans in and kisses him. Then she directs him to go downstairs, and you just hear her like telling him to like hold me, feel me here. And in my mind, like I'm a lot of times we go back and think about like childhood experiences or like stories we've heard growing up, and I was trying to think of any similar situation I heard about growing up, and the closest thing I came to was this older girl who lived in our building. She was like in her late teens, and she would just like give dudes in the like young kids in the building head. And I didn't,
Ugh.
and like that, I don't know, man. Like it's weird, like really thinking about the reality of that, right? Like earlier you talked about it being a movie, right? And like, that wouldn't happen in real life. But knowing that there's just a reality of people who do this, um, and also like seeing it within blackness was weird to me because it's, for the most part, I've always seen it, on television and movies within like the white realm, or I have an awareness that it exists in the Hispanic realm. But seeing it within like blackness, this felt wholly other. There's a scene where Mrs. Tate's like ties their hands around a pole, and she's just like working them, working them, working them. And I got beaten. I got beat as a kid. I ain't never get my hands
We
tied.
all did.
Right.
Yeah.
I used to have to nail on cheese graters. They call it ajune in Haitian Creole. Sometimes you nail on rice and then you get it beaten. So like I understand the personally, right? I understand there's a torture aspect to that, right? Like you want
Yeah.
to torture
Definitely.
someone and make them break and then still add on to it. Um
Yeah.
so yeah, like I said I connected with some of that trauma. Like I said, a lot of his story I kind of relate to. His pops was murdered when he was a boy. Like my biological father was murdered when I was a kid. I talked about closure and like seeing this journey is a lot of like what I've been trying to get to, like just trying to find some closure from that experience, and the mystery of like having that half of my life not present, and it's in between all of that, right? In between the closure and the trauma is just the anger, the resentment, and hopefully the healing, right?
Yeah. I also wanted to just say one more thing about like um how they touched on Nadine molesting Antwone. And I'm just glad that they approached it with like a seriousness, because not that it's not serious, but sometimes you hear like, in situations where a woman is doing it to a boy, it's like, oh, like, yeah, that's not rape. You should be enjoying it. And I'm
All right.
glad that they showed it like, no, this is traumatizing and this is not right. And I'm glad there wasn't like, like a character that was like, oh, it's not a big deal. Like, you're a man now. I'm glad that it was approached by everyone. Like, this was not a good thing that happened to you. Even when he runs to Jesse's house and he's like, he doesn't have to tell Jesse anything. Jesse's just like, oh, did she do this again? It's okay.
Yeah.
You can stay here. And
All
it's
right.
like, it's all serious through the whole thing. And it's never like presented as a joke or not like, as serious as it should be seen.
Yeah. Another thing too, quickly, is the fact that they don't visually show it happening and left it up to you to like formulate it in your head, like create the visual in your head. I thought was super powerful as well,
Yeah.
because a lot of times in films you're seeing this you're seeing this happening in front of you. You might want to turn it off, or you already have this vision because it's on the film. It's on screen, and I we all see it in our own way, and it's 100% troubling and disturbing. But I appreciate the fact that you heard it, and then you had to kind of put it together and imagine it, and it wasn't something that's pleasant for sure. Um, so yeah,
Yeah. I guess tying into the visuals, one thing that I really loved about this movie was granted it's older film, it's not HD, it's not 4K, but the lighting and the way they showed black faces, I think was beautiful. And I think being in the military allows you to kind of accentuate black skin a lot better because there's no beard, right? There's just like a little accent piece with a mustache. It's very clean cut
Hmm.
and shaven, and you just like I'm watching it, and I'm really just focused on like how rich and beautiful their skin looks, and like how it sounds sounds weird, but right, it's like
No, it doesn't
how
sound weird.
well I'm like I was gonna say like just like black features, right, like the blacks, like the lips, the cheekbones, just
Yeah.
like really just beautifully shaped and beautifully skinned, and like there's like this air of perfection behind how all of their faces are presented, which I thought was amazing.
Especially Derek Luke, because I felt like the whole time, you're right, the lighting was great because he's dark skinned, and a lot of times you see that in movies, people look washed out, even with like bad makeup. But like it really just showed you, like, look at this, like he's a beautiful man. Like, look at
Right.
this beautiful man like moving through the world. But like, yeah, he was gorgeous. I was like, oh, look at him. He's all lit all well.
Yeah, that's I'm gonna say it too. That he a beautiful man. I was thinking
He
the same
is.
thing.
He really
I was
is.
like, yo, this brother, he put these us dark skinned brothers on the map, baby. Yeah, he was doing his thing, and talking about visuals, and this is kind of opposite of what you just shared, but when they were in the when they were at the office, the adoption office, trying to get information about his adoption, and the faces of all the kids, man, all the little all the kids that uh, may or may not have been adopted. I think they were adopted. I don't know, but it's just the faces of the kids and how uh, how happy they looked. But it was like you could just imagine someone being like, "Sit up." You need to smile. Your new family needs to see. Like that's what I saw with all the different races of kids and the age groups and the pictures on the walls.
Right.
And that was something that definitely was hitting hard. And then toward the end of that scene, she comes back and she gives him, the folder with the information about his mom, and him learning more about that. But that scene was vivid to me, just seeing all the different faces of the children.
Yeah, I really love that they added that, because it isn't necessarily about the story, but it's important in terms of this the foster care system in general, knowing that there are children out there who are I guess it is related, right? Knowing that there's kids out there, right, who don't have family, don't have support, don't feel loved, and they're dealing with trauma. Um, and I use the word humanize just in the sense of it puts it in front of you, like it puts the human experience in front of you, right? Like here's this overall story about this one kid, this one young child who's been through the foster care system, and he turned out okay, right? He turned out
Hmm.
okay because he had his discipline, he had the reading, he had outlets to help him escape, but not all the children have that. Not everyone gets out, or not everyone finds again closure that they need. So I really felt like, to your point, that was a beautiful addition because if it withdrew us from Antwone Fisher, but it still kept us within the story and the theme of just trauma, and knowing that there are people out there looking for love, looking to be accepted. Yeah.
And
I was
even
one of those
like,
kids. Okay, Tazi.
no, 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 you go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh, no, I was gonna say I was one of those kids, man. Growing up, my mom was on drugs. My dad couldn't take care of us, so I was in foster care. I don't know, probably for like 3 or 4 years. And then as I got older, I used to get in trouble all the time, and ended up in a group home for a couple of years. And quite honestly, everybody has horror stories, but I had good experiences. Like I had okay experiences. They, my foster mom and foster family did a good job taking care of us. The group home I went to, it's called the Children's Village in Dobbs Ferry, New York. Hands down, one of my best. Like I learned what brotherhood was because I was there with all these other young men that weren't just black, weren't just white. There was a mix of races, and they were like my brothers. And I was there for like 2 years. So I know what it's like to be in those situations, and I was lucky because my parents, both my mom and my dad, and some of my other family members, they used to always make sure I was good. So if something were to happen, they were there. My mom came to see me every week. My dad came to see me every week until she got herself together. I was fortunate to have, and I'm really really appreciative for it, because there's a lot of kids who go in these systems and never get out. They have to stay there until they're an adult, and it takes a
Yeah.
toll on you. So that's why this film hit me even more, because you know, like you're saying, Cliff, there's a lot that I see. I see a lot of myself in Antwone Fisher, um, and to see him get to the point where he gets at the end of the film, I just felt like, yo, my brother did it, right? I was like, yo, my big brother, Derek, man, like, Antoine, you did it, bro. Um, so, uh, so yeah, you know that. And I just wanted to add that real quick.
You were gonna say something, Tati?
Oh yeah, I was gonna touch on that colorism from Mrs. Tate when she was like, she was already trying to pit the
Right, right.
not Jesse,
Dwight.
Antoine and Dwight. Was Dwight the biracial kid?
Yeah, it was Dwight and Keith,
Yeah,
right?
Okay,
Yeah.
so
yeah,
they were trying to pit them against Dwight. I think Dwight's the biracial kid, because they're like, oh, he's gonna get out of here, like, because he has a white father and or a white parent. And I thought that was like, it's like, this is coming from this black lady telling him, like, you guys are never going to be anything because of the color of your skin. And he comes back at the end and he's just kind of like, look at me. Like, he does his whole famous line, his famous quote, like, I'm still standing, I'm still strong, because she really tried to break him, and it was like, he couldn't catch a break, and then he finally, he got free. But I feel like it's not often that you see movies where um not only are the men being so vulnerable, but it also shows you that, like, not only men are predators, but like women are predators. Because you look at, like, every woman that failed him all the way to the end of the movie, and it shows you why he kind of didn't deal with women. And
yeah,
he opens himself up again to be, vulnerable with Cheryl. And that's in spite of everything. So I think, like, even though the whole time you're watching this movie you're seeing, like, how, like, predominantly women are failing him, women also are helping him too. you know his aunt comes in and she's like, oh, you got the right number. And
Right.
I think that was really nice.
So you said a few things that sparked a few ideas in my head. Like when I was watching
Mm-hmm.
yesterday, looking at although it's women, more specifically, it's black women. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's important to kind of note that.
Yeah.
Um, and while you're talking, you brought up colorism, and I was thinking about the darkness of Mrs. Not that darkness. That sounds weird, but that's the color of Mrs. Tate's skin, thinking about Cheryl and like how she's a bit more lighter, and
Mm-hmm.
wondering if there's this like a bit of colorism in him. Like even Dr. Davenport's wife is a bit lighter skin,
yeah,
and
Yeah.
I was trying to wonder if there were any scenes with him interacting with other dark skinned women, because even his aunt is a bit
Lighter.
yeah.
yeah. So I was trying to wonder if there were any scenes with him interacting with dark skinned women that weren't like toward the end when it was just a sea of a family.
I
Either
don't.
of you remember?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't think
yeah.
so. I think, did he?
There is a scene with him interacting with the dark skinned woman, and it is his mother. And that scene is extremely, extremely powerful. But it is that I think, to you guys' point, that is probably why the film is the way it is. They probably purposely did that throughout the film for him to interact with his mom when she's the only dark skinned woman I could remember him having a one on
Yeah.
one conversation. Um, so it is that scene. Other than that, I don't think there's any other ones. But
Yeah. Because I thought about that too. At first I was kind of like, oh, I feel like, is Antoine Fisher really mad at, like, is he really mad at women? And then I was like, no, I think maybe it's coincidental, but you can never really tell with, like, colorism and things like that. But I did kind of wish that they, like, developed Eva May just a little bit more. I just wanted to kind of, like, get an understanding of her, and I don't think we got that. And I know it's because, it's being told from Antwone Fisher's point of view, and he's like, it's about forgiveness and stuff, and it's about forgiveness, period. But like, I wanted more from Eva May, like an explanation or something. Not that it would have been an excuse, but just to kind of see her as more than like a one-dimensional character. I feel like everybody else was really well developed except for Eva May.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the. I guess I looked at it as there was nothing more to have there, right? For him, the closure was just meeting her,
Right.
right? And because he talks about being so like he said, right, I'm a good man, right? You said I'm a good man, I'm a
Hmm.
good man. These are all the things I've done. I've never done drugs. I've never been arrested. I'm a good man, and knowing who he is as a character, as an individual, right? His mother's lifestyle, who she was, I don't feel any resentment from him toward her. I don't think he cared. I felt like he would be willing to accept her. But I
Hmm.
think that moment was enough for him.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I get that. I don't think there was any resentment either. Because he does, when he leaves, he says like, and I didn't see her again. But I was just hoping that like there would be more conversation rather than honestly monologue. Um, I just felt like, I mean, Viola Davis is great in everything she does, and she really gave everything that could have been given for that role
right,
without saying anything. But I just wish that there was like something like, that would kind of make you understand like what kind of woman she was, because all we get is she was in a bad circumstance, she failed incredibly, and then she disappeared into the ether.
right,
I just wanted to kind of not not sympathize with her, but like understand her just a little bit more.
right,
Yeah, I could definitely understand where you're coming from with that. I think for me, it was a part of the movie where I was literally in tears. Like
a
it hit
part
me
or
so hard.
parts. It should be a lot of parts.
No, no, it
Yeah.
was that part. There were other parts that I was emotional, but that one like really hit me, just personally with my relationship with my mom. But it hit me because I can tell, you could tell, and again, Viola Davis, unbelievable. You can tell that his mom had mental illness. She wasn't all the way there, and all they both needed was to see each other. They just needed that moment, and the rest of their lives, if they never see each other for the rest of their lives, it's fine. Like they, like that closure. And
Yeah.
I don't think she needed to say. I really don't think she needed to say anything. She literally did by her allowing her son to embrace her for a moment was everything to me. So it was all
Yeah.
she needed to say. When he leaves and he kisses her on the forehead, that just was so telling to me,
Yeah.
and how he does it. To kiss this woman he's never knew he's been looking for his entire life, and to show her love, and let her know like, hey, I'm good. I just thought that was unbelievable. So, there were other parts obviously that made me emotional, but that part right there was just super, super. It hit home for me. Just how even when he first walks in and his uncle is telling his mom asking his mom who's the firstborn, what's his name, and she just she dashes to the back of the house, and even that just hit me like, and the way he went about it, he had this I don't even know how to explain it. Like he had this care, and again, like I feel like he was doing this to everybody he met that he really cared about, where he just was giving people grace. Like he had this level of grace that it
Yeah.
didn't matter who you were, even though he wasn't getting it, he would give it to other people. And he did that for his mother, who didn't do anything for him but brought him into this world. And I think he appreciated that enough and kept it moving. I was like, yo, I gotta live my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's but I definitely understand your your point of view. Like, yeah, it would have made sense for her just to be like, I try to get you back, or give him something, some type of dialogue on where
Yeah.
her life has been over the last 20, 30 years, or whatever the case may be. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's also maybe a realization on her end, like she has nothing to offer him, right? Like if someone like going back to the idea of closure, right? Like with a relationship, right? Someone comes to you and is like, you know, your choices affected me in this way, but I've been doing this, I've been doing this, I've been doing this, I've been doing this. I'm good. What can you really tell them to comfort them? Like they're good, they're settled.
Yeah.
They
Nothing.
don't need you. Maybe it would help, but I've like I was looking at it in terms of like being a parent, even though
Hmm.
she's a off parent, she's a parent, and there's still this realization that I had nothing to offer him back then, and I still don't today. So there's nothing for me to say, kind of.
Yeah, I think it
Um,
was like definitely a combination of pride and embarrassment, and then it made me think like this is kind of like how Antoine was in the beginning of the movie when he wouldn't say anything,
right,
you
right,
know.
right, right,
So it's kind of like, all right, it's coming a little bit full circle, and you kind of see like where he's healed enough that he can confront this life changing event, and she's just probably not there yet.
right. So we haven't really touched on the male love and male relationships. So I would love to get more of your perspectives on the relationship. I mean, I guess overall the relationships between Antoine and the different males and different male cast in the movie, but especially
Hmm.
his relationship with Dr. Davenport.
Um, I feel like his relationship with you could just tell the whole movie he's very stoic, he's very laconic, and I feel like there are people that his friends know that, like some of his friends are very aware like this is how Fish is, so we'll leave him alone. When he wants to participate, he will participate, and so they kind of understand him from there and don't ask for much from him. But the relationship that he has with Dr. Davenport, like honestly, is literally that made the movie for me. Like seeing them interact and seeing both of them change, like I was tearing up a lot, especially anytime they were interacting, especially when he tells a story about Jesse. Anytime he realizes, like, oh no, this one person that I really depend on might not be a part of my life anymore, it like breaks him. So like seeing him even heal from that was nice. I think they both found something in one another that they needed, which they kind of talk about towards the end of the movie. Um, but if I just hope that was real. Like I hope that they really stayed in touch after that because it was mad beautiful. It
Right.
was mad beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think in addition to what you've added, uh, Dr. Davenport and his wife were trying to have children, and they were in this space where his career and her trying, and then they have this guy who comes in and disrupts all that. It kind of in some ways, I don't even want to say disrupt, that's the wrong word to use. He ignites it in them. He reignites it.
Yeah.
This fire to share that parental guidance to a young man who is in need. And you can see that not only Dr. Davenport is really connected to him, but again his wife is connected to him, and they also have their separate relationships. And Dr. Davenport feels a way about it because he's seeing his wife happier. He's seeing his
Yeah.
wife more more energetic, and he's like, what is going on with it? Antoine's doing this. So he that relationship to me opened up trauma from both sides, and it was they needed each other to heal. They needed each other to uh, to take that next step in their lives. And as Dr. Davenport keeps telling him throughout the film, you got to find your family, you got to find your family, you got to find your family. And then at the end of the film, he realizes that he has two families. He has his military family and Dr. Davenport, and then he has his real family. And they don't have to be separate. They're one big family for him, and that's what that that dinner at the table represents at the beginning of the film is, he has this big family, and obviously it happens at the end of the film as well. But that's what I really really took away, and I also took away too that Dr. Davenport was getting so like engulfed with his connection to Antwone that he had to start pulling himself away. He had to be like, "Hey, man, like
Yeah.
I'm this is affecting me now. Like I'm supposed to be helping you, and now you're helping me, and I'm
Yeah.
affected." Uh, and Antwone, again to your point, Antoine's like, everybody keeps leaving me. Now you gonna leave me.
Right.
So I just really love that connection, and it all had to start somewhere. Like as a kid growing up, the men in my life, most of them I connected with after having some type of disconnect. And after the disconnect, I respected them more. I listened to them more because we had to have that powwow for us to get over that. And then I was like, cool, he's earned my respect. I feel like that's what happened with Antwone and Dr. Davenport.
Yeah, I've been thinking about how important the military aspect is to their connection. And just thinking about dynamics between black men, younger black men, older black men, not listening to the older generation trying to guide and support, but the military aspect forces this level of respect um, between Antwone and Dr. Davenport. Um, yeah, I don't know. It was just an initial thought. I'm kind of still unraveling it. Because like they never really bring. I don't remember them ever bringing up race throughout the movie or making it about race. Uh, but yeah, that's all I had. That's all I had. I,
No,
I,
that's
I haven't
that's a
unfolded the thought yet.
no, but that's a great point, right? So the military, even when he and his friends are what they at a bar and they're all trying to connect with different women and he's not doing it. Even in that, which again I don't really think they're his friends. I think they're just his military buddies,
Right.
like I don't really look at them as his friends. But even in that and how they were treating him, there were men in his life who he had one or two guys that was like, hey, like you said, that's Fish, that's who he is. But he didn't really have anybody who gave him the level of attention and the level of understanding that he was getting from Dr. Davenport. But on the flip side, when he was acting up, when he was having these outbursts, it went from being Antoine's like a son to me to being like, I'm a commanding officer. You need to shape up, boy.
Right. Right.
Like,
Right. Right. Right.
and I think that played a huge part in it. I think to your point, like you see him literally like having this outburst, and then when it's time to have a conversation with Dr. Davenport, is more so like these things need to happen, and they need to happen like this no matter what because I'm the commanding officer.
Right.
And if that wasn't there, if that dynamic wasn't there, who knows? He could have maybe ran away or walked out or whatever. But in this case, he had no choice but to sit there and face it head on. So I think that's a great point.
Yeah, while you were talking, I thought about you brought up his friends and how their interactions with him were just kind of based off on his terms. So I guess that is it, right? Like the relationship with Dr. Davenport is founded on Dr. Davenport's terms, and his term is, "I'm here to help you figure out whatever you need to." While everyone else is like, I'm out for Delph. I'm just gonna do what I need to do for myself, and how you live your life doesn't really affect me because I'm still getting my check. So yeah, that thanks for that.
I feel like he did have friends. I don't think everybody was his friend, especially the ones that would kind of like egg him on about his sexuality. That guy was a dweeb and a jerk. But Pork Chop, I think that's his name.
Yeah,
And the white kid from, I can't remember his name, it's slipping my
Kevin
mind.
Entourage.
Connolly.
Yes, Kevin Connolly. But I feel like those two guys were probably the closest thing he probably had to friends because they did kind of care about his well-being, and they broke up the fights. But it's hard to be someone's friend when they don't let you in,
Right.
They probably don't know him. I'm sure they don't know much about his upbringing, they don't know much about his life. He doesn't have many friends. The ones that he did have died. And so I feel like they were the best friends he could have at the capacity that he was functioning. But when, he got in touch with himself, they kind of like moved a little bit to the backside of it, like to the wayside or whatever. But yeah, they all weren't friends, but I think those two guys were his friends. I think Pork Chop was pretty solid friend.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Um, so Thomas, why did you choose this movie, man?
Well, everything we've said, but the main reason is because I saw a lot of myself in it, and I felt like because of the media we have and the movies that we have and that represent the culture and the movies we talk about and the movies we highlight, this is one of those movies that nobody really talks about. Nobody really gives any type of, like, I don't hear people saying that it's one of the best movies for black men, or that, like when I tell people about it, a lot of times it's their first time ever hearing about it, and
You're
it's
right.
very it bothers me a little bit. So the reason I chose it is because one, I thought we were going to have a really incredible conversation about the dynamics, but two, it highlights like real life black, the real life black experience for some men. I think he was from Detroit, if I'm not mistaken, or he lived in Detroit. Um, I
I
think it
think he's
was
from
Detroit,
Ohio.
Yeah,
Ohio. Okay,
Cleveland, right? Yeah, yeah. I feel like you said
Cleveland.
that.
Yeah. It was in Cleveland. So it every aspect of the film to me was so authentic. I never looked at it like, man, this shit is not real. Like this, like whereas movies that we done like Dead White People, there's stuff that happened in that movie. I'm like, this would never happen. So that essentially was the reason I chose it, because of the authenticity of what it is for the black experience, as well as it showing black men in so many different, like Tati said, it's like an onion. There's so many different layers to it. Everybody can get something from it, and I hope more people are inspired to watch it, because I think there's something in there for everybody. Black, white, doesn't matter who you are. There's something in there for everybody.
Can I ask you guys a question? Both of
Of
you
course, you
guys?
don't have to ask us. You can just ask us. Just ask.
No, no questions.
No questions.
No
We ask the
questions? All
questions
right.
here.
All right, I'm out of here. No, I was thinking like, do you think that the reason why Antwone Fisher isn't as, is not seen as one of the great movies to watch is because there's like a stigma around therapy and black men?
You can go ahead first, Cliff.
Um, I think it's. I think Antoine Fisher, like a lot, like movies like Journal for Jordan, movies
Hmm.
like If Bill Street Could Talk, Fences, all these, like, and this is something that I realized last year. Um, like going to movies a lot more consistently and focusing more on black media is that these type of movies don't garner the attention of the average black consumer. I think that's just a reality. That I think that's just the reality. Especially nowadays, it's all comic books, it's all fantasy, it's all glitz and glitter. People don't. It feels like the black culture isn't interested in biopics or autobiographies or stories about the reality of the black experience and black trauma. Um, on one side, I think it's because, well, we live it, right? Like, we're sitting here talking
Right,
about,
right.
yeah, like I've gone through that. I've gone through that. At times, part of it is, healing on your own and not even thinking about it, not realizing it, not wanting to face it, not wanting to deal with your own personal traumas, but also just being so disconnected and immersed into what the average, I guess, everyday pop culture and whatever that's feeding you and telling you is important.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I don't really think there's so much a stigma of a therapy. Even back then, I think the movie came out early 2000s, 2001 to 2002.
2002, yeah.
2002, yeah.
Yeah, so back in those times, and sometimes when we're thinking about, or when we're looking at the significance of what we're dissecting, we got to go back to what was happening in those times, right?
Hmm.
And back then, to your point, therapy and black men healing, and this whole revolution of black men being more sensitive. It wasn't happening. It wasn't a thing back then. So so that could have played a role back then. I think nowadays, I think the film, if it came out today, would do so much. It'd be looked at so different because of where we
Definitely.
are.
Definitely.
And I think too, uh, yeah, it's because the Pursuit of Happiness is also is a like a biofilm, a biopic. But that film more people know about that than they know about this. And it may be the names behind it, it may be the marketing, um, and just the story behind the film. Right, the Pursuit of Happiness is more upbeat, and it's not as deep as this. There are some moments, but it's not as deep as this. And I think this film is very very telling. It's very very traumatizing. It hits in so many different ways. So yeah, I don't think that it's specifically around just the therapy or see a psychiatrist, but I think it's just talking about trauma. Trauma was never something that people really talked about back then.
Right.
Um, so in some ways, Denzel Washington was ahead of his game back then. Telling doing this film, he was ahead of the pack. So
Yeah.
uh, so yeah, I hope that answers your question. But
Yeah,
that
definitely. It
my
did.
thoughts.
So just some quick numbers. I looked it up. So opening weekend for Antwone Fisher was $210.13. Sorry, $210,000. Excuse me.
Oh,
And opening opening weekend. Pardon me. That was just five people saw it. Um, Pursuit of Happiness opening weekend was 26 million. So I think
yeah.
it kind of also plays to your point, Thomas, about being more upbeat. I think the star power behind Will Smith is always kind of being Will
Hmm.
Smith.
And this
But
was like Derek Luke's first movie, right? Like his first big role.
uh,
Yeah,
let me
he was
check.
in Biker Boys too, though. I don't
Yeah,
know what
he's in
Biker
Was
Boys
it
Biker
came.
Biker
Boys right
Boy?
after that.
Yeah, I
Oh yeah, it
remember
was
that
after.
Right. Yeah.
with,
Um,
with, with my man Lawrence Fishburne on the motorcycle.
Good old Larry.
yeah, this was his like debut movie. You were right. But yeah. So, final and always relative question is connecting it to what's going on today. And I feel like we kind of touched on it in regards to like mental health. And definitely, like, I feel like if this movie came out within the past 2 years, like, this would win an Oscar because it is, it's powerful and it encompasses all of the reality of the lived trauma. It encompasses the reality of, I guess, what is some of the black trauma? I don't know what I'm saying, but I feel, I feel like you get it. Yeah,
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I get what you're saying. Like a
yeah.
lot
So
of trauma itself is very generational, and you're right. Like people, a lot of times we sweep our trauma under the rug, and then next generation does the same thing because that's what we keep being taught. But I feel like you guys are right. If this movie came out now, people would be like, "This is incredible," and I feel like everyone really, honestly, did such a good job in it. Like Joy Bryant, she was in it, and she played such a. I feel like she played what she had very well, and like given the limited lines, she was good. Viola Davis was great. Denzel Washington, absolutely phenomenal. But Derek Luke, like he really took the cake. Like how do you stand toe to toe with Denzel Washington and like I can't take my eyes off Derek Luke being Antwone Fisher,
right,
I feel like he did not get enough credit for how great he was in this movie. Like he was so good.
right,
But it definitely plays into a lot of people getting into therapy now, and like you said, trying to heal themselves and heal their trauma. So it definitely it would have definitely killed the box office. Maybe in 2020, not now, not during this pandemic, but definitely in
yeah,
2020.
yeah. And I guess we should just backtrack for a second because we didn't really touch on his powerful conversation with Miss Tate, right, Miss Tate,
Yeah.
when he came home and he's trying to get information about his family, um, and we talked about it. We brought up parts of it, but the reason I think that's so significant is because I felt like he was talking for all of us.
Yeah.
He was talking for all of us who made it, all of us who did the right thing, all of us who triumphed. And the way he was doing it, he did it so powerful. Like he 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 was at a point where he was like, "Listen, there's nothing you can do to break me down." Um, and Tati shared the line, but I think that's something that is that moment. And then I always have, and I'm probably gonna do it. I'm really big on moments. So I do screenshots of films, and that screenshot of him turning and walking away back to the car, and just that he had that like that pride as he was going
Yeah.
back to the car, to get in the vehicle after like letting them know like, yo, y'all try to break me, but I'm still here, So um, that is a scene that all these young people, young black people that are in these situations need to see. Again, it's a film they need to see, and I hope that it does get the credit it deserves. And who knows, maybe they'll do a re-release one day, or we'll connect with them down the line with this podcast and inspire it. That would be great.
Right.
That would be
But who
great.
knows? Anything's possible. And shout out to the original Antwone Fisher, but Derek Lou definitely did his thing.
I also wanted to say something about that scene with Mrs. Tate. You see how like how welcoming she was to him? She was like, "Nigga." And I was just thinking like the whole time it's like she dragged him up. She barely did her job raising him, right? And she still felt like he was sort of indebted to her with like respect, with kindness, like, "Oh, come in." Like I feel like a lot of times even with like familial bonds, if a parent or a guardian doesn't do a good job, but they like kept you kind of fed and they kept you kind of clothed, that you should be grateful for it. She felt like when he started talking to her, it was almost like she was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Like, what's going on? Why are you so upset? Why are you so
Right.
angry?" It's like you can't just drag somebody up and expect them to, just love you because they lived under your roof.
Right. Right.
That switch up was crazy when she went from nigga to Antoine.
Right,
Antoine. You could tell she never
right.
said his name before. She was like Antoine.
She didn't. She barely knew how to say it.
Yeah, that switch up was nice.
Um, yeah, I don't really have anything else. I just had one question for you, Tati. Thomas and I
Hmm.
kind of both shared how we saw ourselves in Antwone Fisher. So wondering if you saw yourself in any characters, if you saw yourself in Antwone. Yeah.
I didn't. I didn't. I did not see myself in any of the characters, but I still really enjoyed the movie. Sometimes I feel like I don't have to relate fully to a movie to understand it. I think the most I related to it was probably like the dragging up. Like sometimes the dynamics of dealing with a parent who kind of put in the bare minimum and being like, I don't understand what you're mad about. You're alive. You've made it this far, kind of thing. But other than that, I didn't. But movies that I don't like relate to in that sense, I feel like I kind of enjoy more because I see it like from a completely different like perspective. Where it's like, oh, I can understand all the characters. I think that's why I kind of wanted to know more about Eva May because I can't relate to the story. I was like, what about Eva May? I would like to hear a couple words from Eva May,
Right.
but it was still a really great movie to watch. Like, definitely thought it was awesome.
Any final points for you, Thomas or Tati?
Mm, Sally Richardson, who plays Berta Davenport. I always, for some reason, I don't know why, and I know it's impossible that this can be the same person. I always think she's Pam Grier for like 2 seconds every time I
I
see
get
her.
that. I definitely get that. Yeah.
she,
Yeah.
she definitely got that look. But come on, she's from, what was it, a low down dirty shade?
Yeah, I think yeah, and then she was in what was it, Black Dynamite, and she
Black
had the
Dynamite.
wig.
Yeah.
And when I watched that, I was like, "Is that Pam Grier? It's impossible. That's not her."
Yeah, she's fire.
Yeah,
No, the only thing I would end with is, it's been great, being a part of this season, and being a part of this whole podcast with you, Cliff. Um, the energy is always great. I always feel super excited to have these conversations and excited to see how you and Tati take you to the next level, man. And yeah, let's see, let's continue to have these types of conversations because I feel like they're not happening enough in our communities. And Tati says she has a list, so I'm excited to see how you guys dive into that.
I got a list.
I got a list. All right. We'll post Clubhouse. Um, yeah, we'll post a Clubhouse on social media. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for rocking out. Yeah, this was dope, and looking forward to season two. Not sure when we'll officially start. I'm thinking maybe early May.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll decide, and we'll be ready to kind of chop it up and share more Black media from the past 30 years to offer that inspiration, guidance, support, love, and to elevate Black stories. Thanks for rocking out. Peace.
Peace out.
You could say bye too, Tati. I would say.
Bye. I wasn't sure.